Eden Hills is an academic and political activist, and she's running to be a councillor in Little London and Woodhouse. Eden, how are you?
I'm great. I'm actually really good. How are you?
I'm very good. I've not had my coffee yet, actually, but I think I'll make do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did have coffee and I feel better, but I've already been out this morning, so
Just to kick things off, you're running in Little London in Leeds, off the back of Hannah Spencer, her Gorton Denton win. The Greens are no longer a party that is successful in the south, places like Brighton and Bristol. You know, they're progressive areas. Not surprising, the Greens are doing well. But the north, areas which used to be Labour strongholds, I mean, what do you think has changed for the Greens?
I think it's the public perception of like us being a real electoral force. I mean, like I think the Gorton Denton win was pretty instrumental in changing that perception. Um, Obviously, when Hannah Spencer won, it was huge for us. Like the government messed up so bad by not allowing Andy Burnham to run like an actual, socialist uh, in the Labour Party, and we got our own socialist in, and now look, people actually voted for her. And that real perception of the Greens as a winning party, a party that can make change, a party that can be normal people represented in Parliament is super important. So we're out there now, and it's great, and it's affecting things across Leeds as well. Um, People have like spoken to me on the doorstep about Hannah Spencer, saying that like she really inspires them, things like that. Um, so yeah, it's affected a lot. It's changed a lot.
Well, it's interesting. I spoke to Zoe Garbett last week, and she said the same thing. She said Hannah Spencer came. Oh, this is in London, by the way. She's running for Hackney Mayor. In London, people are talking about Hannah Spencer. This has had a real ripple effect. I mean, do you think actually the win for the Greens in Gorton and Denton, given the fact that it was a landslide, has sort of been it's turned the page for the Greens. Of course, you know, the membership swelled, the polling went up, but it was the first electoral test. Are people taking the Greens seriously in terms of, you know, being a true electoral vehicle?
Yeah, completely. I mean, there's two sides to it, isn't there? Because people are finally seeing it as not a wasted vote. I mean, for so long, it was so easy to just say, like, voting for the Green Party is a wasted vote. I have felt that in the past, like, especially when the choice for so long has been between Labour or the Tories. Labour was like the lesser evil, so it was just way easier to say, well, you kind of have to vote for the Labour Party because otherwise these other people are going to get in and they're going to cause way more problems. Now that perception is gone, and people will sort of see that it's a bit of a level playing field and anyone could win. Getting the message out, especially in Gorton and Denton, and now here and everywhere across the UK, that the Green Party can win, and you don't have to waste your vote voting for like a lesser evil or the best of a bad bunch. You can vote for someone you actually like and actually want to support. Has been super instrumental. But then the other side of it is the scrutiny. At the same time as like being an actual force out there, you get the media scrutiny. You get people saying, some pretty rough stuff about people in the party, about the leader, and not all of it's true, and most of it isn't true, but it happens because the media is terrified of like a force that will come in and make changes, make big changes to prevent, profiteering at the highest levels, which happens in the media as well.
Let's focus on Little London and Woodhouse. What have been the biggest issues you found on the doorstep?
Housing, like housing is across the board the thing that comes up the most. Probably like 80% of the work that we get in is about housing. We have been working with community organisations. There's a group called In the Name of Love Housing that work with homeless people on the street. We do like homeless outreach every Monday at 6:30 to go and feed the homeless, but also speak to them, ask if they have housing officers, see if they're having like difficulties specifically with the council, and try and work things out for them, see what we can do, like add our own little casework to the side of it. And that's been really helpful in like getting people into housing and off the streets. But also, um, we don't just work with like homeless people, we'll work with people who are already in social housing, but their social housing is inadequate. The places that they're living are like damp, or for example, they have like an autistic child living on the 13th floor of an apartment building. It's just not acceptable. The risk is way too high. Making those kind of changes and demands to the council has been really important. And I'm hoping if I get elected, to continue working with them and try and get their voices into council so we can make some sort of like reform to the social housing system. So yeah, that, but also private renting. Like I've been working with Acorn Leeds to try and get their people's platform. I don't know if you've seen it, into the council so that we can have their voices heard, their voices amplified. See if we can make some changes at that level as well. Yeah, a lot of stuff, but mainly housing. Public transport comes up less often, but we're already working with Better Buses West Yorkshire, and there's not a super crazy amount that we can do as local councillors about public transport, seeing as it's genuinely controlled by the by WICA, West Yorkshire Combined Authority. We can make some changes though, and hopefully we'll be able to drive a bit more positive, accessible public transport through with just a bit of campaigning.
Yeah, of course. I mean, housing is one of the biggest issues, and I think everywhere in the country you go to, people are going to talk about that. Have you found though that when you speak to private renters, in big apartment blocks, and people who are owning their own home, I don't know how many people you've come across. Do you find that there's a consensus on housing still, or do you, because obviously people are in very different situations. If you own a house and you're renting, it's very different. Um, are you finding a difference between these two people, or is there still a consensus on housing?
So, in Little London and Woodhouse, 12% of people own their own homes, and that's including people with mortgages. 88% of people are private renters or don't own a home. So, the vast majority of people are renting. I don't come across people who own their own home that often. And when I do, I will talk to them about improving housing, improving social housing, improving things across the board. And generally, people agree that that is super important, because people less fortunate than themselves will still need, the council to act for them. But on a local level, for those people, yeah, there is less I can do for people who own their own homes. The usual stuff that a councillor does, keep the neighbourhood clean, look after the local area, improve green spaces, that kind of thing. Doesn't It's harder to sell those things because, for want of a better way of putting it, every local councillor does that, unless they're a terrible councillor, but there's only so many of those. I will do my best to be a good councillor, but it's more the sort of like macro level that we're looking at to improve social housing, change the social housing system, improve public transport. That I think is the broader change that people need to see. Those kind of things, obviously, they affect the cost of living crisis across the board. And we can speak to people about national politics at that level to try and get people on board with stuff. I think the national politics angle is probably the best one, because there are things that we want to do for homeowners. We want to end leasehold, for example, and we want the Renters' Rights Bill, for example, to go way further. So those things are easier to sell people on when they own their own home. But like I said, here in Little London and Woodhouse, it's not a super well-off ward. There are a lot of people who are struggling, a lot of people renting. So yeah, those are the people that speak to the most.
So when you go around to different areas, I mean, let's park housing for a second. Do you find that people speak about different things, or is there a general consensus of what people want? Maybe if you go to a place that could be a little bit wealthier, for example, do you find that people's priorities are different?
Um, it's funny you should say that. Like, the things that come up on the doorstep are usually like hyper local things. So like the street that they live on, like for example, the uh, waste services like the bin men will not come down one specific street, so they won't take the bins from that street. That needs sorting. Like that's something we can look at for that particular area. Make sure that's sorted. But in general, the same kind of things come up across the board, like the same issues, housing and public transport, and as a local sort of citywide thing. But also, like national things still come up on the doorstep. I was talking to people about Hannah Spencer. Palestine comes up all the time. Like the betrayal of the Labour Party comes up constantly. Like the fact that people voted for them en masse to get the Tories out to see big changes, and they've just not seen big changes. I know it's only been however long it's been. God, it feels like ages, but it's only been so long. But people are needing to see more radical things, and they're just not. So yeah, that comes up quite often.
Yeah, I mean the political class have sort of attacked the Greens for talking about Gaza. It's a local election. Even in Gorton and Denton, it was a constituency election, right? It wasn't a national election. But of course, Gaza was important, and the political class sort of attack the Greens on that, saying you're voting for local councils. Why, you should be putting British people first over Gaza. But Gaza and Palestine is a really salient issue. Of course, if you speak to many people in the Muslim community, it's important. But have you found that generally, from people from all different backgrounds, have found Palestine a real big issue, rather than the media saying, "Oh, it's just what Muslims care about." I mean, I'm an atheist, right? I'm not a Muslim. Yet Palestine is a big issue for me. So yeah, when you speak to people of different backgrounds, is that still very important?
Yeah, like pretty much constantly. It comes up. Yeah, I don't know. It's like an big particular like ethnic demographic when it comes to people talking about Palestine. It's just constant. It comes up on the doorstep all the time. Um, just people saying that they've been betrayed by the Labour Party because of it, because of what the Labour Party did, and how much they're like inaction, and how long it took them to actually like do things about it, and how like affiliated they are with the Israeli government and what they'll do for them in terms of the war now, or the genocide now. Yeah, I think it's just pretty constant. As a humanitarian issue, like it primarily, I think, comes up because people are sick of like the division, I suppose. You can't be well, you can, but it's terrible. When reform like tries to divide people by race or like ethnicity, religion, any other kind of division, um, people are quite sick of it now, I think, and can kind of see through the attacks to say that like this person that might be a different ethnicity is no different than me and is suffering the same kind of problems. They're still undergoing, problems because of the cost of living crisis. There's still no public transport in my area. Um, those things are the things that affect people's day-to-day lives, not whether there's more white, black, brown faces across the street that you live on. It doesn't affect people. And slowly, as more important people realize that, I think they start to see that the narrative that are being peddled by, well, reform, but also the Labour Party, aren't improving things. They're not making stuff better. And that expands out to Gaza. Obviously, watching people across the world like crying with dead children in their arms because of the Israeli government bombing them. It's not nice to see that, no matter what color people are, like whether you have particular like uh, associations with your own race or with other people's races. You will still look at that and see horror and misery, and it's just not good. So I think slowly people are realizing that, and that's why it comes up so much on the doorstep, because it's just so vile and so horrific and so obvious on social media.
What's been the biggest difficulty for the Greens? Are there certain things from the party that have turned people off, and you've had to have maybe difficult conversations, or you've had to go that extra mile to try and convince someone that they should vote for the Green Party?
I suppose there's a couple of things. Primarily like political apathy, um, especially now, like because of living under the Labour government. Like the Labour government, the one that we've got now, sold itself as people's last hope, really, didn't it? A hope for change, a hope for big things happening in your area, and then everyone voted for them, and nothing happened. Things got worse for some people. Things just sort of stayed the same for others. That doesn't inspire political confidence, and then there's a lot of people that we're seeing who are like ex-Labour voters, probably the biggest demographic, ex-Labour voters who just aren't going to vote anymore. And the biggest challenge has been meeting them on the doorstep and saying, no, we are actually different. Like, you haven't voted for us before. We know you haven't. Do you want something different? Do you want change? But selling people on change when they've just been sold on change previously and received no change can be kind of hard. It's a hard sell sometimes. But we are different. We had 60,000 members at the start of last year. Now we've got 225, 226,000. And, people are waking up and realizing that they can do something, and that this is like an actual bit of hope for the future. So, yeah, that's been a big challenge for us. Yeah, that's the main one.
I mean, in terms of like the more contentious policies, like drug policy and immigration, right? I mean, I think it's fair to say that in this country, people want to see immigration come down. The way in which immigration is viewed in the national media or the political conversation is always in a negative light. Okay, and it's fair to say the Greens are far more liberal on the border than, say, Reform. I know this is local elections, but it does come up. Has immigration been a weak point for the Greens? And drug policy too, has there been questions in which people say, I really like your economic policy, I love that you're committed to public services, but these things I'm not sure about?
I'll start with drug policy. Drug policy has come up. It mostly comes up on social media. Um, like, I made a couple of videos talking about drug policy, and they did pretty well. I think people will mostly look at the policy itself when they actually have it explained to them and see, oh, this does make sense. Like, it's not what the media is telling me, um, because there are a lot of right wing, centre right wing, uh, far right political commentators who say, the Greens want heroin to be sold at Asda or whatever they're saying. That is just so far from the truth. Like, it's so insane. And after a while, people can kind of see through it, that's quite crazy. But it does come up on social media, and most people, when they are saying that, they don't really believe it. It's just an attack line used to try and convince other people that we're all, delusional, or we are unserious, maybe. But then when people are actually have the policy explained to them, they can tell that that's just a sensible thing to do, and that the war on drugs has been really damaging. It's caused ethnic division. It's caused problems with the police. It's not happening. So yeah, that's a big change. But immigration, I don't know whether I can't speak for everyone, and I can't speak for all Green candidates, even across Leeds. But in my area, it has barely come up at all. I've spoken to 2 people who mentioned immigration. One person who said he completely agreed with all Green policies except the open border policy. So he's going to vote restore. And I had a chat with him and said, if you agree with literally everything else and not the immigration policy, consider voting for us anyway. Like, I thought that would also make sense. And then I explained our actual immigration policy and not just the, attack line of all open borders. And I think he was a little bit more on board. We are pulling people quite a lot from reform by just speaking sense to people and saying, we are going to do things in your local area, and our policies, when we explain them, do make sense. So yeah, we are getting people to come across like that. Yeah, it doesn't come up all that much for me, so I don't really have much to say, but I can't speak for everyone. I know that it will probably come up in other areas more.
Really interesting you said that. I know it's only one example, but it sort of it neatly comes into the question I was going to ask you, that reform and the Greens, and maybe we can even put restore in there. Now, of course, are very, very different. But again, you've spoken to that particular person, but have you felt like there's been a sense of people who are leaning towards reform but are receptive to green left-wing populism? Or is that overblown? I mean, are these voters the hardest to convince? Or would you find, maybe if you came across a conservative voter, that actually engage in reform and maybe restore is actually easier to maybe not convince, but have a proper conversation about the Green Party, especially on the Greens' left-wing economic platform?
Okay, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of reform voters who have racial hang-ups and are just racist, and it's harder to speak to those people, because we cannot convince them that social equality is a good thing when they don't want social equality. It's harder to speak to those people. You can bring them around eventually, but it's a longer conversation. It takes a lot more meetings between 2 people. It takes their family to convince them. It takes meeting people who aren't like them, who will eventually sort of show that people don't need to have those kind of hang-ups. But the vast majority of people who, or at least the vast majority of reform voting people that I've met while canvassing and campaigning, have been people who just are using it as a protest vote because they hate the current government, or they hate the previous government, or there's some specific thing that's happened in the local area they don't like. Those people are just using it as a protest vote, and it's very easy to convince those people that actually you shouldn't waste your votes, you shouldn't waste your protest vote on a party that is going to cause more damage, is going to cause problems within the local council, is going to cause problems on a national level, is just trying to enrich the people at the top of the party. Those people you can talk to and convince over to the Greens, because to an extent, sometimes we do pitch ourselves as a protest vote away from Labour, away from the Tories, away from reform, away from things that people have seen before. Yeah, that kind of works with those people, and I think that's why it happens. It also works on Labour voters, on people who are disillusioned with the current government, who voted for Labour because they were left wing and wanted to see change and just didn't get it. Those people are disappointed and disillusioned, and selling yourself as a protest vote to those people, as an actual left wing alternative, and as people who are mostly socialists in the Green Party. It's easier to convince those people.
So this week, there's been relentless attacks against your party leader, Zach Polansky. Has these attacks come up on the doorstep?
So again, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, it has not come up once. I think people can see through it. Like, whether or not it's people can see through it, or just it's a terminally online kind of behavior, I don't know. But it doesn't come up on the doorstep, and it hasn't come up for me. I've actually had more people this week uh, than ever talking about Zach Polanski and being like, "Oh, I like him. He's pretty good." So yeah, it hasn't come up.
So basically, what you're saying is Twitter isn't real life, and
Twitter, beloved, Twitter is not real life. Put the Twitter down. I like, as a terminally online woman myself, I love Twitter. Well,
you love hate Twitter like me.
formerly Twitter. I do enjoy a shit post, if you will, but
Yeah.
no, we got to put that down occasionally and step into the real world.
In the last couple of weeks, then, has the energy felt different with people? Is there a sense of urgency from people? Has there also been, because the same thing with Gorton and Denton, that there was a lot of undecided people, and as you get closer, people start to decide. Have you noticed any sort of change over the last couple of weeks, or has it felt like the conversations have been almost the same since your campaign started?
Um, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of people um, who are undecided, and we can talk to those people. We convince them. It's good. I love chatting to people like that. Um, but I mean, there was a study that came out after Gorton and Denton that said most people decided within 2 days of the election who they were going to vote for, or even within 2 hours, or just showed up and made a choice on the day. People have said that to me in the past. Like, I usually just go and pick from the list of people, whoever feels right in the moment. And yeah, I think that's more common now than ever, especially when the sort of duopoly that Labour and the Tories had for so long is officially dead and gone, and now people have more choices. So yeah, decision paralysis. It's going to affect everyone, and there's going to be way more people deciding close to the time. But then again, we meet quite a lot of people who are avid Green voters who really enjoy the Greens, who are whacking up posters all around the ward for us. So yeah, it's hard to tell. I just keep telling people we're in with a good chance. We're in with a good chance.
Eden, thank you so much. Really interesting, and good luck.
Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your day.